So first things first, you get this out of a box. What do you do next, right? Well, we need to start with our initialization, and there's two ways we can do that. We can do that through a web interface, which we'll talk about in a second for some of the models. And second, we're going to talk about the command line interface. Now, this is the command line interface connection capabilities. First off, we have Telnet and SSH. One of the things you have to realize, and you should know coming from a CCNA or CCENT background, is that Telnet is plain text traffic. And we don't like plain text in the IT world because it isn't secure, that's for sure. It is a security hole, very large, should not be used. If you're looking for remote CLI management, I suggest you look to SSH. Telnet is only acceptable in legacy environments where you have to use it, and even then, very, very sparingly. Now, those of you who have a background in routing and switching, you're used to hardwired switches and routers, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here when I mention the console port. Now, the console port is a serial connection. This is through an RJ45 port on almost all the current models. Now, the 5500 series does have a USB option, and I've even seen that starting to come into play in our big routers and switchers in the real world. So no more having the RJ45 serial to the USB cable into your device. They've started making more options. I like the RJ45 port because I'm used to it. I have an RJ45 to serial cable. To USB cable direct. I don't even use an adapter anymore. So those are out there if you need them. Otherwise, you got to use the same RJ45 to serial DB9 to then the DB9 to USB connection. That's what we've been using forever and ever and ever. So as a matter of fact, here it is. This is the RJ45, the RJ45 end of things. You can see that here. It looks like a regular network cable. But then it ends in a DB9 connection here, a serial connection. That serial connection is then going to have to be let into an adapter. Unless you have a serial connection on your laptop or whatever you use to manage devices, you would need an adapter that takes that serial connection and then going over to the USB itself. Now, I'm not advocating, if you saw any type of company thing, I'm not advocating any particular company. Most that I've seen work just fine. I've used several through the years. I don't want to say how many years, but several have been used just fine. Older models used to need a driver sometimes. Most don't need a driver today. You can plug them into modern computers and they're just fine. Now, you will need some type of third-party program to do this connection. Most often people refer to PuTTY or Poderosa or whatever it is you use. Z-Term, if you're a Mac user. I'm not advocating any of these over the others. These are just some off the top of my head. Just use them. PuTTY by far used to be the most popular. I don't know if it still is or not. Back in the good old days, it was the preferred method of connecting. So you need a program in order to translate what's happening through this serial connection. Now, in order for this serial connection to work, you want to set it at 9600 baud, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity, no hardware flow control. So I'm going to open up PuTTY on my environment right here. We can take a look at this. I'm going to move it up so it's right in the corner, nice and pretty. So here we can see I'm using PuTTY configuration, and we have many modes of communication that can take place. I have raw connection, a telnet connection, RLEGON, SSH, and serial. Now, I'm not going to use SSH. I am actually hardwired into my wireless LAN controller now, so I'll click on that. And you can see it says the COM1. You see the speed is 9600. So many of them will actually have the stop bit and parity already set exactly the way you want it. If you wanted to look into that, you could dive deeper into it with the data. You can see here the proxy, telnet, SSH, serial. You can see here 9600, like we talked about, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, parity, no flow control, right? This is auto detect on or off. It doesn't matter. So then I could go back and let's take a look at our session here again. We can see our session. Am I truly on COM1? Now, how would you find that out on your computer? Lots of people ask me this question. Lots of guys I know just guess, even guys who are well respected. You don't have to. It's not that hard. Hang on. You don't have to guess. And here I'm going to show you how. We just go to our properties here. And we go to Device Manager. Once we're at Device Manager, if we take a look at our COM ports right here, this is where you're going to see this is our COM ports. I'll open this up. As long as you have that USB serial port connection that I talked about, that one wire, you'll be able to see it actually right here. And as you can see, it's COM4 in my environment. So what I'm going to do, let me close all this out. And I'm going to actually put in COM4 in our little connection here and see where we go. COM4, okay, our serial line's COM4, 9600. We checked everything. Everything's good. So now you see we're attempting a connection. This is actually to my wireless LAN controller right now. So this is real deal, really happening. We're using our command. We're getting into the command line interface. You can see that it takes a little while. We're only at 9600 baud, so we're not moving a lot of data, right? No, you networking guys out there know exactly how fast that is. Some of you may even remember using that speed to communicate. I won't name any names. So here you see user. Who's it asking for? I've set this up in advance. I know who I am. I am the admin. I know my password even. And then I press N, and you can see I'm now in my Cisco wireless LAN controller. Now, those of you who are used to router and switches, guess what? Look, show run, nothing, okay? The commands are different, really different. You have to understand that. We'll talk more about the CLI later, but this is how you get into the CLI. This is how you take a look and make a configuration change. So again, 9600 baud, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity, no hardware flow control. Most modern have that auto detect on or off. That's not a big deal, as you just saw.